I am Hayden Barnes, and I will be migrating my blog today from my old Ubuntu image to a new openSUSE instance on Vultr. So, what does that all mean? So, those of you who might follow me on social media, I blog occasionally. My blog is Box of Cables. It's mostly just a bunch of random stuff that I post about. I link my videos here, tell stories, sometimes write essays about, some controversial open source stuff from time to time, gets traffic. I think my most famous blog post to date has been the accelerated KVM guests on WSL2. I don't put analytics on here. I don't really believe in analytics. I don't want to track my users. It'd probably help, maybe get me sponsorships or that kind of thing. I'm not really interested in that. I just want to put out stuff for people to read and enjoy. So that goes here. And a bunch of other random stuff, weird Linux distros, running Windows 2000 and QEMU on WSL, just random stuff, odds and ends. It's powered by Ghost, which is a blog platform, and it's become more than a blog platform. It's now a newsletter, recurring revenue type platform for content creators. Ghost is open source. They have they've evolved come down to a Substack alternative as well. It embeds with Patreon, basically allows you to host your own Patreon, integrate with a whole bunch of services. It's really cool. They operate on a open source SaaS model, so they have paid versions that start at $9, go up to $200, depending on what you need, SLAs, updates, upload file size, that kind of thing. Or you can download and use the open source version. So if I was using this site for paid newsletter, or really using it to drive revenue, other than just being somewhere I put cool stuff I want to share, I would pay for it. But I have tried to support them over the years. I promote them actively. If setting this all up yourself and hosting it yourself is not for you, then $9 a month isn't that bad. I encourage you to subscribe and support the Ghost team with Ghost Pro. But if you want a DIY and you're willing to do everything yourself, the open source version is there. And it's what I've been using for a few years. I just hate WordPress. It's just so complicated. With Ghost, I even use the default theme. I just drop it in and go. I don't really want to spend a lot of time customizing or editing templates or that kind of thing. So, as you can see here, they have some docs on how to install. They've got Ubuntu, they've got a Docker image you can install from source. No openSUSE guide, so we're going to figure out what we need to do for openSUSE from the Ubuntu directions. And then actually you're going to see a little bit of my process, because as we do this, I am simultaneously going to be creating a blog post of how to do this. So that'll actually, we'll stop and then back it up and move it over and pick up the blog post when we're done. So it's kind of cool, a little meta. So first things first, we need to provision a virtual server. So I use Vultr. Vultr has a host of products, everything from, I'm logged out. Oh yeah, I just updated my I guess everyone's going to know my old and new usernames now, or emails now, whatever. Let me get my authentication code. But, yep, feel free to email me if you want. There we go. So Vultr is a smaller VPS service. They have, I shall show you right here, they've got VPS that are focused on high frequency service, cloud compute, they've got bare metal, and they've got dedicated machines. I have been using Vultr for a long time. They are super simple to use. If you've ever used a platform like Linode or DigitalOcean, you'll probably be familiar with Vultr. It's nowhere near what you would get with AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, but it's just the right size for me. And I'll show you, they have a really cool feature that I like because it gives you some cool options that you wouldn't otherwise get. So you can see right now my website is hosted at boxofcables.dev. It's on a pretty small VPS. We can go in and look at the usage graphs and see, I mean, we rarely get above 8% CPU usage. Disk operations, you know, pretty standard. I think those are regular backups. I get network spikes, but I mean, it is by no means overwhelmed at that small size, so no need to go bigger. I do have automatic backups configured, and then I keep snapshots from time to time, which are extra. You pay for storage, but the issue here is it's running Ubuntu 18.04, and Ubuntu 18.04 got 5 years of support through 2021. That's not right. I'm thinking Ubuntu 16.04. Ubuntu 16.04 got support through 2021 with the 5 years support. 18.04 is still under support for a while, but you know, I want to move to openSUSE Tumbleweed. I really enjoy openSUSE Tumbleweed. It feels really stable despite being a rolling release. I feel like it's the latest and greatest packages. They're also heavily tested with openSUSE and SUSE's OpenQA system. So very rarely do I see a package get rolled back or anything along those lines. I've never encountered an issue with a package there. You know, I just want to be on openSUSE Tumbleweed. So let's migrate over, and let's bring Ghost with us and figure it out as we go along, and document it so we can make a blog post from it while we migrate our blog. So first things first, I am going to create a new instance, and this is where things get fun. I get to show you that cool feature that Vultr has that you know, I found. Maybe some other services have it now. I've just been with Vultr so long, I really enjoy it. But what it does is, so I'm going to get a high frequency server that's NVMe based. The lowest one is $6. There's a $5 cloud compute, but paying the extra $1 a month gets you NVMe and a little extra storage, and it's perfect for what I need. I'm going to base it in Atlanta because that's closest to me. And here's where it gets interesting. So we've got our operating system selection here that's built in. Okay, that's one thing. You've also got a community ISO library. You got old versions of Debian, really old versions of FreeBSD, Rancher OS, which isn't even supported anymore. But they're there if you want them. But what they've really got here is the ability to upload and install from your own ISO image. And that is exactly what we're going to do. So first things first, I'm going to pick that. That's a 32 gig NVMe, 1 CPU, 1 gig memory, 1 terabyte of bandwidth. It's always been more than enough for me. But first we need to upload our openSUSE ISO. So I'm at openSUSE.org. I'm going to grab the network image because I don't really need to download all 4 gigs. Using Edge browser here. Let's see, we're going to grab that ISO and we're going to upload it. You know, we're not going to need all 4 gigs. If we were installing a desktop, maybe I'd get the desktop ISO, but we're going to be installing just a core set of server packages, a lot of which are going to get updated, and so that network image is perfect for that. We'll give that a minute to download. Take a drink. Refresh. Let's see. So once that ISO gets uploaded, we'll provision our new VPS, and then we'll need to go and create a user, a non-root user, and then install Node, which is what Ghost is based on, and configure it. Then what we'll do is we'll export everything from our my old blog and upload it to the new blog. And before I update the DNS records, I'll make sure it's all working and looks nice before we pause the old VPS, spin the new one up, update the DNS entries. And let's check on that ISO, and it's ready. All right, so we want to go back to instances, deploy a new server, high frequency, Atlanta, upload ISO, pick my ISO, $6 a month, and then where do we go from here? All right. Box of cables. Deploy now. Alright, so now it's gonna boot a VPS, attach the ISO, and then we'll be able to go in and basically get a VNC look at the device and configure it from there. There we go. Okay, let's go. View console. Let's see, did the console come up? No, I'll have to add the console real quick too. OBS, give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, we are going to install (1996 to 2021) SUSE LLC. SUSE. Let's see, my first Linux distro was Red Hat 5.2, Then SUSE was my next one, and that's back when we actually bought Linux on discs. You could actually get them at Best Buy. I mean, there was a period where you could go to Best Buy and not only buy software, but you could buy a box set of Linux DVDs, or first it was CDs, later DVDs, and it'd come with a book, you know, an old-fashioned book that you could read. You know, remember manuals? But the problem with those early Linux distros was always the graphics. You know, I never got Red Hat 5.2 to actually boot to a GUI because I had a ATI Rage 128 card that just wasn't supported. And I think eventually I got SUSE running with KDE. And then there were a lot of other distros at the time, like Corel Linux, Lycorus, Lindos, before they had to change their name. Then later, I think it was 04, Ubuntu came out. And then Ubuntu kind of came the default, because unlike the others, it just kind of worked. And Mark would mail you a CD, so you didn't have to buy it. So we're, you know, it's just downloading, syncing with repos, getting updates, preparing for the installation. Wait for that to finish. Of course, we'll have to configure SSH as well. We should do the smart thing and use SSH keys and not just a password, because these IP ranges of these VPSs just get hammered with people trying to guess SSH passwords. Although I'm pretty lazy about that kind of thing. Yes, we will activate our online repositories. We're going to add all the main repositories. It's going to refresh from the repositories. While that's doing that, let's open Firefox. Firefox up. Okay. So there's openSUSE Tumbleweed, and let's grab the URL for that. Good. So I use Firefox for blogging with Ghost as opposed to Edge. There's some sort of bug in Canary Edge right now where any Ghost blog post with a lot of images slows down incredibly slow. So Firefox is what I'm using to blog with right now. Just if you're curious why it's not Edge. It's also my special purpose browser. I use it to browse securely when I need to browse securely. So I got a lot of security tools enabled on that. Let's go check the console. So we don't need a desktop, we just need a server. And next. Yeah, we could potentially do something like just enough JEOS, or with a transactional server, which is actually micro OS. It's more advanced. Something maybe for a later video we can play with. I'm old school. I mean, you also notice I'm not putting this in Kubernetes or even a container. This is just an old-fashioned VM. All right, Eastern US is correct. All right. All right. I'm going to set the. Actually, go ahead and create an administrative user. See, and then here in that openSUSE, it gives you really handy breakdown. So you can already see, I mean, it's doing some packaging work. We've got the CPU mitigations for Spectre enabled, firewall enabled, SSH will be opened and enabled. Everything's configured via DHCP. It's using Network Manager. We could switch to Wicked. Wicked is openSUSE's Network Manager for servers. Network Manager is more for desktop, but I don't really see a need to switch it and potentially mess with that. It's going to boot to text mode, in terms of a systemd boot target. It's going to install about 1.6 gigs, so we have plenty of space for what we need. Let's go ahead and install, confirm, and let that go. I mean, the thing is with the backups from Vultr, I mean, if this were a much more serious production application besides just my blog that's automatically backed up, something like a transactional server would make sense. Putting it in Kubernetes, in a container in Kubernetes, if I was worried about redundancy, but it's really not that important. So we'll let that go, and then we'll go back to the blog. And get that URL. Let's see, there's probably another post that gives a good summary of why I like openSUSE Tumbleweed. Check the console real quick. Okay, it's downloading. Let's go actually look at my blog. Because somewhere here I give a good description of why openSUSE Tumbleweed. Yeah, let's use this. Copy. Intro to openSUSE. Let's talk about what we're doing here too. This guide covers the installation of Ghost, newsletter platform on openSUSE Tumbleweed. Preparing disks. I bet you if we went to the usage graphs, nope, nothing reported in yet. I hope everything's going well with that. Not a lot of feedback there. Here we go. Just some random errors. Don't see anything related to that. Was Control Alt F2, by the way, to look at those other consoles. Wondering why it's taking so long. A little bit concerning. But we'll give it a chance. Let's go work on that blog. Let's see, Ghost. We'll make that. I think it's actually lowercase Node.js. Maybe. Huh. Definitely don't like that it's stuck on preparing disks. Still no. Let's see. I didn't check F4, the fourth console before. Oh, these are kernel messages. Yes, can you okay, so it's formatting. It looks like it's formatting a swap right now. It's not frozen. We'll just give it another minute. Huh. It has been going for a while. see. 4132. If that's 41 minutes past, then it's been about 7 minutes. All right, we'll give it a few more minutes before we regroup and figure out what we should do, because that is strange. Yep, let's figure out how to spell Node.js the right way. Let's see. Node.js, okay. So Node.js is an interesting little project. It was developed from the same company that worked extensively on the, it was developed by Joyent, which was a tech startup that was later bought by Samsung. And they also developed extensively Luminos, which is the ongoing open source version of Solaris. So at one point, Sun open sourced Solaris. It was Open Solaris. And then it was just Solaris, and it was open. This was prior to the Oracle acquisition. And then it was made proprietary again, but a fork of the Solaris kernel called Luminos was maintained by a group of Luminos-based distros. Joyent was one of them. There was a community-based one called Open Indiana. There was one that basically took a copy of the Ubuntu environment, down to the desktop, and put the Luminos kernel underneath. So it felt very native if you were used to Ubuntu, but you were just running a derivative of Solaris, basically. The advantage of that was ZFS support. And that was back before, ZFS even now is still under some questionable licensing issues. All right, it's done. It's still preparing disk, so I'm going to reset this VPS because that's frustrating. All right, so I'm just going to do a server restart and restart the server. Maybe we should try, instead of using Btrfs, just XT4. Let's go check the console. Yep, you can see the console. And then installation. Yeah, the only time these little 1 CPU, 1 gig VPSs feel slow is when you're doing a full GUI installation. I think Vultr is based on OpenVZ. I could be wrong, but I think it's an OpenVZ virtualization host. Hypervisor, I should say. Let it do that. So anyway, also in addition to maintaining Joyent, which allowed for really big, um, you know, made it their niche was in data storage, because Luminos and the Joyent, there's what they call their SmartOS, which was based on the Luminos kernel. That was their distro. Had ZFS support, and their cloud offering was data storage, block storage, that kind of thing, based on ZFS. And it was later bought by Samsung. It's still out there. It's still being developed. You can get Node for Luminos and SmartOS and Open Indiana. You can get builds of some things too. It's not a bad experience. It's basically using any Linux distro, just with no proprietary applications. So you're going to get everything that comes in GNOME or KDE and is available in your package manager, but that's going to be about it. So there's no flat packs, there's no snaps. You're not going to find a copy of Teams. The limited stuff that does run. You're going to be in a similar situation to FreeBSD, but maybe FreeBSD even has better Linux compatibility in some cases. So, but you get other features too. You get jails and dtrace, all before these things were ever built into Linux or Windows. These all come from Solaris. You can still get Solaris too. You can go to Oracle and sign up for the developer program and get a free copy of Solaris to develop on, and it runs GNOME. It runs, a recent version of GNOME. So it is in fact, Solaris x86 is the only certified Unix that you can buy and run on anything. HPUX you have to use on HP hardware. Mac OS you have to use on Apple hardware. You can get some Unix certified Linux distros. They exist, but they're targeted to server hardware and cloud hardware. So you're not going to get support for them on anything else. Euler OS is one. There's an Open Euler if you wanted to try that, which is a really interesting hybrid that pulls from. It's actually like CentOS Stream. It pulled from Fedora and CentOS with a really weird mix of packages of different varieties. All right, let's try this again. We're going to do a server. Next. But yeah, so Solaris is out there. I think you can even run it on OCI, Ubuntu's cloud, Oracle's cloud service. Let's see, let's adjust what's going on here. Let's try the guided setup first. Remove if needed, remove if needed. Yeah, we're going to remove all of that. We're not going to do disk encryption. I'm going to go with ext4. And yeah, Btrfs has its advantages. It gives you transactional update, the main transactional snapshots and that kind of thing. But I'm wondering if that was one of the reasons why it kind of failed on us last time. And again, I got snapshots built in to Vultr, so I can always just roll back I don't really need that in my server. If it were more important, I really would. I just don't mind that much with those automatic backups. All right, let's set our administrative user. Nice long password. Try this again. So yeah, openSUSE has your option of Network Manager or Wicked as like a network config daemon. You know, it all wraps around IP tables or NF tables. It's using Network Manager here. Again, I'm not going to change it like I said last time, but Wicked does have some cool features. In my blog on using openSUSE Tumbleweed, there's something I did, I think Windows Server. Wicked has automatic bridge networking built in for VMs, which is really nifty. Some other things require a little extra effort. Wicked just does it. The flip side of that is that there's no Wicked support in GNOME. So if you enable Wicked, you no longer get a nice drop-down, pretty drop-down manager to manage your Wi-Fi and all of that. It all has to then be done in YAST. So, I mean, on a server, that doesn't really matter. So I know we're going to need to install Node. So install Node. We'll have to install Nginx too. Still back on that preparing disks. Okay, back to here. Kernel messages indicate it's doing XT4. And it's stuck. So what I'm going to do, I am going to grab an ISO of Leap, just because. Just in case. So, whereas Tumbleweed is the rolling distro, Leap is kind of the snapshot for openSUSE. So it's on 15.3 15.3 right now. 15.4 is an alpha. Let's go back to products, ISOs. Let's add an ISO. Let's add the ISO for 15.3. Start the upload. So openSUSE Leap 15.3, once it's tested and stabilized, will become the enterprise version of SUSE, SUSE Enterprise Linux, or SLES, as you might have heard it referred to, and it will be SLES 15 SP3, which is out, and Leap 15.4 will become SLES 15 SP4. I assume eventually we'll get to 16. I'm not on that team. I don't get to know those kind of things, but I'm assuming we'll get to 16. Yeah, so SUSE Leap is not rolling, so it gets a set of releases and then backports. I'd been hoping to use Tumbleweed, but I'm just trying to rule out to see if there's an issue with Tumbleweed and the Vultr hypervisor by using a different ISO. So actually what we're going to do now is I'm going to close the console and go back to my new box. I'm going to go to custom ISO, and I'm going to remove the Tumbleweed ISO. Basically unmount it, and then custom ISO, pick from that Leap ISO, attach it, and reboot. Let's go check out the console, see what's going on. Sometimes it takes a few minutes to read for the new ISO to attach and for it to reboot. Let's see. Let me go make sure you can see this. There we go. Really disappointed it's hung on that disks stage. Let's see what happens with 15.3. Let's see, we're going to install Nginx, MySQL, trying to get these headers laid out, install Node.js. This seems familiar. Grabbing those repos. That is not what I was hoping for. All right. Well, I had this lined up just in case this happened. your demo goes bad, when your distro fails you on your live stream. That's good stuff. Nothing like banana soylent for your chaser. All right. Let's get weird. We were talking about Illuminos. Let's use that ISO function in Vultr. Let's see if we can't run Ghost on Illuminos. Maybe we won't migrate over the whole blog. I'm not even sure it'll work. Let's find out. Let's go back to here. Let's go get the SmartOS ISO. I'm going to be looking stuff up as we go, because believe it or not, there's some things here I do not know, like how to install add ISO. Oh, only 2 ISOs at a time. All right, well, it definitely didn't work, so we're going to delete that. It's still attached. Settings, custom ISO, remove ISO. No, products, ISOs, leap, deletes, add ISO. Let's get that SmartOS ISO. User's guide. Zones, not jails. Luminos uses zones. Let's see. Yep, see ZFS, dtrace, virtualization, KVM. But zones, long before, you know, well, I mean, at one time, it was just simply more performant than KVM or using namespaces with Linux. Let's see, let's do some Googling. Install Nginx SmartOS. We're going to be going down some blogs. Yeah, package in. That's a weird song. Let's jump to the next one there. Alright. Check on. So we've got 90% of SmartOS. We can do this in Windows too. You know, everyone hates on systemd so much, but SVC ADM, every NIX now has some sort of service manager that's more complicated than you know, those init bash files. Just is. Let's go check. All right, let's go back to our here, attach custom ISO, SmartOS, attach ISO and reboot. Attaching ISO, open the console. It's not ready yet. Let's switch it over. It's not ready yet. Here we go. Right, let me show. There it is. You can see it. Okay. Luminous. So it just seemed fitting to run Node on SmartOS, seeing as they're both from Joyent. Node has since been contributed to a project affiliated with the Linux Foundation, kind of like CNCF. Luminous is just an open source project. There's Open Indiana. There's a couple others. The one that gave the whole Ubuntu-like experience is gone. And it's stuck. You know, I'm really starting to wonder about the virtualization hypervisor Vultr's using. This is 3 distros. I mean, I know there's plenty of tested distros I could have chosen, but I wanted to use these. It's really frustrating about Leap. I mean, I figured if it weren't for yep. Not boating. You know, sometimes things just don't go. So I'm gonna stop that server. Kill that console. I'm gonna remove that ISO. And go look here, settings. All right, let's I'm not doing a BSD. I think Fedora 34 has to be out of support. CentOS Stream, Alma Linux. I don't want to play with any of those. Let's go get just enough OS. Does it even come? No, I don't think just enough OS comes as an ISO. And I have no way to sideload the other image. Maybe micro. Let's do the micro OS. It's worth a shot. Nothing else is working right now. Where did it go? Tumbleweed. Here we go. Let's see if they have a net install. Virtual machine, cloud. Oh, they have Pi and Pine 64 images. That's cool. That might actually be cool for my Rock Pro. Huh. Anyway, but no ISO, except for this one. All right, let's get the big ISO. It'll take a minute. In the meantime, let's have a backup. Let's delete that. It'd be funny if I put it in Windows Container and ran it on Windows Server. You can launch Windows Server directly from here on Vultr. You pay an extra $20 a month for the license. I already have the license though. I just have to sideload my own server ISO. And build, you know, a Windows container. That'd be an all-night project. I've already got to change the title and description of this from migrating from Ubuntu to openSUSE Tumbleweed to dramatically failing to do so. Unless we get MicroOS to work. Let's go check that ISO. Oh, that was fast. All right, it's ready. Let's go back to our 2 settings, custom ISO, attach and reboot. Okay, so you can see that go. All right, it's not ready yet. Just gonna reboot one more time. So you see BIOS key, it must be KVM based. I just don't understand why there'd be so many issues in a KVM based distro. There we go. So the whole immutable thing, we'll have to go into specific mode in order to make file system changes, or else they're just gone on reboot. I'm gonna have to look up what those are because I don't know them off the top of my head. We're gonna need to check some documentation. Let's see, uses ButterFS, all configuration files are stored in Etsy, are part of the snapshot and rollback. Applications are installed in containers. All right. You've got that debugging toolbox container, which gives you a privilege container. that's persistent. Because I'd really hate to, you know, set everything up, get it configured just right, and reboot and have it go back. There are alpha and beta versions of MicroOS with GNOME and Plasma. Yeah, install software with transactional update package in. Yeah, you can't just use zipper. Probably gonna have to look that up again later. Yes, NTP. I'm gonna set the root password. Okay, it's ButterFS. See, it's deleting a lot of partitions and creating partitions. I'm wondering if that is conflicting somehow with the hypervisor. Let's find out. So what I did there is, as it started the disk configuration, I just switched right over to the D message from the kernel to see what was going on at the hardware level. MicroOS is installing. Now I'm going to have to learn MicroOS. Hey, we just got a new title for the video. Have to remake the card though. Well, I said let's get weird. We just got weird. Alright, well that's doing that. Let's go read some documentation real quick. Okay. We can install packages with Flatpak, RPM, snaps, or app images. Let's see, transactional update was the old default. Package kit is the new default. Interesting. So, package kit is meant to integrate with the desktop. Okay, transactional update with zipper is still the default for the server version. Package kit is meant for use with desktop. Okay. That's what we needed to know. All right, let's go check on that upgrade. By that install. It's so weird that those other versions wouldn't boot, or had, in one case, a kernel panic of some sort, some kernel failure. All right, we're rebooting. Let's boot from hard disk, MicroOS. Throw some random systemd error. All right, here we go. We've got root. All right. Question is, do we have SSH? if that comes standard or not, or if it is because I want to enable it and make sure it stays enabled. Does it come with YAST? No, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't have YAST. Right, so we've got a third snapshot. All right, let's see what's running. All right, SSHD is running. Let's create a new user. Yeah, add users an old Ubuntu habit. Failed open. Why is it opening nsswitch.conf? Oh, to create a mailbox folder. But did it create the user? It did. All right, let's set a password for the user. All right. Let's try to SSH in and see what happens. Copy that. It'll also be easier to see. It didn't like the password. Let me go reset the password. Okay. This might be an SSH configuration issue. Oh, I goofed that one bad. It got me on delay because I entered it. Okay. Oh look, it's running Wicked. A lot of ButterFS tooling running. 3 instances of SSHD. Let's kill all of those. I think we're going to regroup here. Pause the stream for tonight. Come back at this tomorrow. I've got to go update the description for the title for sure. Because this has now just been live stream. We haven't achieved much other than shown you can't boot the Tumbleweed and Leap ISOs or Luminous ISOs on Vultr, which is really disappointing because I love Vultr. I could use Azure, I know. Alright, we're going to regroup, come at this again tomorrow night. I really appreciate you joining me if you watch this long. You know, sometimes your demos and your streams just don't go as you expect, and you get to try again. That's the fun part of this. That's why I've been doing this almost 20 years. Trying to get Linux to work.